Everything happens for a reason, but sometimes the reason is you're stupid and you made a bad decision. And my Democratic colleagues have made a very, very bad decision here.
Yes, the always amusing, always entertaining, always articulate, and pretty much always correct Senator John Kennedy. Chuck Schumer, the Lizard King, shut down the government last night because he's a greedy, criminal-loving, left-wing radical. Yes, yes, yes. That Democrat Party and the Democrat media, as a darn Republicans shut down the government. Another government shutdown. I kind of enjoyed it. There was a bit less traffic on the way into the radio station today because the government shut down. I always appreciate that. Less government when you're living in Washington certainly is it's a very handy thing. It's a good thing. Very much appreciated. And are people around the country affected by the government shutdown? I'm not terribly affected, other than there being less traffic for me coming to work, and I like less traffic when I'm coming to work rather than more traffic when I'm coming to work, if you know what I'm talking about. We've got a lot of stories going on today in addition to the big government shutdown, and it's all on Chuck Schumer. But he's out there angrily pounding the table, and his lizard. We posted that Lizard King thing yesterday, right, with his creepy little tongue squirting out of his skinny city lips, and Chuck Schumer, the Lizard King, he shut the government down. And then we got Hakeem Jeffries with his anti-Semite mentor, the Professor Leonard Jeffries. These people were not raised in the American tradition, not by any stretch of the imagination. But at least they love Luigi Mangione, and they honestly, I was looking at it today. I was talking to my friends at WLS in Chicago this morning, which I do every Wednesday morning at the same time at 6 a.m. Central Time, and I say the Democrat Party, all their heroes are in prison, like Luigi Mangione, or have been shot dead by the police. By a list too long to go into here, because so many Democrats have had to be shot and killed by the police, whether they're shooting Steve Scalise or the Charlie Kirk guy. He got away, but then his parents turned him in because they're conservatives, and they knew what the right thing to do was. Had they been Democrats, he'd probably still be on the loose, honestly. Like James Earl Ray was on the loose after the Democrat Party campaign volunteer James Earl Ray shot and killed Martin Luther King. Caught him 2 months later in London. But I digress, don't I? A little historical background there. So the New York Times today, U.S. begins shutdown that could lead to mass layoffs and service cuts. They're going to be service cuts. You got to look for the guy. Except that's really not true, of course. They look for something. But if you're military or federal law enforcement, the paychecks continue to come in, right? And if you're getting Social Security or you're on Medicaid or Medicare or whatever, then those continue to be paid, right? And then right. But the New York Times, they just want people to throw firebombs at mansions where Jewish people live and stuff like that. White House orders agencies to shut down as OMB, the Office of Management Budget. OMB's mass firings memo, there's a memo, and it looms. Yesterday it was a government shutdown that was looming. Now there's a memo that's looming because, the news media is there really something. That's the left-wing radicals that mediate. Also, did you see Nancy Pelosi? We didn't get to it yesterday. Nancy Pelosi, who's a shriveled up 85-year-old woman who's had a lot of work. She's had a lot of work done. There's no doubt about it. But Nancy Pelosi drops F-bomb. I would say bombs plural, because she said how many times? At least twice she used what we referred to as F-bombs. It's a curse word, as you might imagine. She used the S-bomb too, which they are in the punch bowl. That's what they are. Pelosi drops F-bomb in shutdown fight as Dems demand health care for illegals. And that's not all they're demanding. They're demanding that we fund the Democrat Party's propaganda network on the radio across the country, National Panhandler Radio. They want $500 million of our dollars just for this year to fund their own propaganda network. If I were a Republican, an elected Republican on Capitol Hill, I might say, okay, we'll give you the $500 million for a Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Panhandler Broadcasting System, the radio network in every big city and every small hamlet across America, peddling the Democrat Party's message. They're all on the payroll and all of that good stuff. But I'd say, all right, we'll fund your $500 million a year. But at the same time, we're going to fund more conservative political talk radio with another $500 million. We'll make it around $1 billion. And that way, it'll be fair, even Steven. They don't want fair. They don't want even Steven. They want to be the Communist Party in the United States, and they effectively are, aren't they? And they're violent, and they love crime, don't they? Yes, they're. Yes, sir. And Chris Hayes, you know Chris Hayes, is he transgender? Is he working on it? Is he doing that transgender transitioning from Transylvania thing? Chris Hayes flat out asks AOC if she's the reason Schumer is playing hardball with the GOP. They're trying to give her credit for shutting the government down because Democrats love a government shutdown. And then they come out and they lie about it. And there's a long history of this taking place in Washington. The Democrats own the news media overwhelmingly. And, you know, they could assassinate Kennedy like they assassinated Charlie Kirk. And they'd come out and say, the Republicans did it. The Republicans did it. Because then 95% of the news media would say, yeah, the Republicans did it. It was a communist that shot John F. Kennedy, or it was the deep state. One or the other, you can decide. Isn't that amazing? But they just love it. Of course, all the other presidents assassinated in U.S. history were Republican presidents, 3 of them who were targeted and killed by the Democrat Party. But we got that. They try to give each other credit. Hey, you shut the government down. Maybe it's you. You could be the hero of this story if you shut the government. And then they say, oh, but government shutdowns are real bad. But we blame it on the Republicans. So since it's bad, we'll just say it's them, even though we did it. Never mind. Also, fun stuff yesterday. Pete Hegseth at the Quantico Marine Base in Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia. And he talked about what he wants for the United States military. And he doesn't want fat and lazy people. He doesn't want big fat generals walking around the hallways of the Pentagon, bouncing off the walls from side to side. He wants people, even generals who are, you know, not 20 years old anymore for the most part, and wants them to trim down, be in shape, set a good example for the troops that they command. And he doesn't want lazy people. So in response, a Democrat journalist by the name of John Harwood, who I've met a couple of times, but not for a long time. I knew a woman that he dated briefly, and she told me why it was brief, and it wasn't flattering. But never mind that. John Harwood, Democrat reporter, he wrote, Pete Hegseth made it clear that if he had his way, the U.S. military would have no blacks in leadership positions and no women at all. Now, wait a minute. Wait till you hear what the Secretary of War, the Secretary of the Department of Defense, the Department of War, Pete Hegseth said. He said he doesn't want fat people. And the award-winning Democrat journalist, John Harwood, he said, well, we're talking about fat people. That must mean black people. And he said he doesn't want lazy people in the military. And John Harwood concluded that meant women. He doesn't want women because he thinks women and black people are fat and lazy. That's what John Harwood, a mainstream media guy, this is the news media. It's good to be a Democrat. You don't even have to tell them what to say to lie for you. They just do it. And the racist, sexist, misogynist John Harwood sees the word fat, and he thinks black people, sees the word lazy, and he thinks women and black people, because fat and lazy. And he says, well, that must be black people and women. That's what he said. He's going to win another journalistic award, I think, because that's great. John Harwood also saying no more beards and mustaches in the military, which aren't always allowed in the first place. But no more beards, no more beards. Hegseth gives military branches 60 days to end shaving waivers for almost all U.S. troops. Stars and Stripes is writing the story. The truth is, for the most part in the military, if I remember this correctly, and I do, it's for black members of the United States military, sometimes black men, and if they're Democrats, black women, have issues growing their beards because of skin issues. There's a particular skin condition. So African-American black troops sometimes are given a waiver. You can grow a beard, you can grow a mustache because you have the skin condition that makes shaving very annoying and difficult, and even a medical issue in certain instances. So he's saying no more beardos like weirdos, but with beards. And the Democrats are very angry about that, too, because they wake up and they've got to be angry about something, and then they so there was there's a tragic story, of course, but a staffer for a Republican member of Congress self-immolated. We got another self-immolation, and this time it's a woman, and she was working for a Republican member of Congress, and she self-immolated and killed herself, K-I-L-T, killed herself, and it's another tragic thing, but the Democrats have made self-immolation fairly trendy in the United States. There more Democrats have self-immolated in the last couple of years than there were Buddhist monks that self-immolated during the entirety of the Vietnam War. And now we've got another congressional staffer, 35-year-old woman, drenched herself in gasoline, set herself on fire, burned herself to death. And a tragic story, but I'll update you on that. Yes, I will. And they got this woman, what they call her, Mikey or Mickey, Cheryl. She's just the Democrats. I got to tell you. How is it that the Democrats make millions and millions of dollars as soon as they get into politics, and the New York Times and CNN never say a word about it and say, oh, no, that's perfectly normal. Sure, you can make $7 million in 2 years investing, and that's just fine. But I've got an update for you on political corruption, which we're so casual about in the United States of America. And in New York, you see they're giving commercial driver's licenses. Shall I list the deadly incidents like the one in Florida, the guy, illegal alien, Indian guy with the Sikh guy from California with the California commercial driver's license, and he didn't pass the test to get a commercial driver's license. Then he went to Florida where he killed a family, right? Was it 3 people? And he killed them. And now New York issuing driver's license to a migrant, but it didn't require that he use his first name. Just go with the last. It's like Cher, like Cher or Bono. If Bono were to get a commercial driver's license in New York, he could just have Bono on it. So that might make more sense because at least he's a little bit famous and stuff like that. But they're issuing driver's licenses, commercial driver's licenses, drive the big rigs, and I got to tell you, the Democrat Party, they're really not on our side, and they're not on the side of public safety. That's a generous understatement. That's a fact. We remain at 888-630-9625. Also, Don Lemon. Remember Don Lemon? He used to work at CNN, and he was so awful that even they fired him. Don Lemon claims that white men, he's attacking white men. White men, I think his husband, is that true? He has a husband who's a man, and his husband man is a white man. But here's Don Lemon, also known as Don Lemon, and he says white men are broken and that white men are to blame for terrible violence in the United States of America. He's an extremely ignorant person of low intelligence and a horrible journalist who never researches anything. And then Hillary Clinton also attacking white men, but not her husband. White men other than her husband and only white men other than her husband. And she's talking about how these terrible white men of a certain religion, and we guess she's talking about Christians, not radical Islamic jihadi Muslims. The Democrat Party is a religion all their own. They have human sacrifices by the millions, just little tiny helpless children. They don't like children very much. Isn't that great? Yeah, but Hillary Clinton attacking white men and Don Lemon attacking white men as well because they're Democrats. They're nothing if not racist, eternally racist. We're at 888-630-9625. The Democrat Party is not on our side, not on our side. Let's go to the telephones, Michael, before I get Nancy Pelosi cursing at us like an Uzbek sailor. You know, they're famous for cursing up a storm, Uzbeks and Uzbek sailors in particular. Let's go to, and the rest of the Democrats lying about everything. Got a couple of Republicans telling the truth, the media lying about everything. Let's go to Matt, calling from St. Louis, Missouri. Matthew, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris. Happy new fiscal year in Shutdown-topia.
I love Shutdown-topia.
I think these idle government workers, when the shutdown's over, they may have a rude surprise coming. Two things the Democrats always count on with these shutdowns. One is that the Golden Stream media is going to convince the American people that it's the Republicans' fault. The second is that they're going to get retroactive back pay for all their idle time during the shutdown. And in fact, I'm convinced, Trump breaks the mold. He may, if he's got any control, he may make sure there's not retroactive back pay. Think about Doge and all that. And so I'm convinced in March, that's why Schumer capitulated. He was afraid, that they'd hold it against him when they didn't get their back pay. But I think this time he's more afraid of AOC taking his seat and the loon base. He's seen that they'll exact violence on anyone who angers them. So he's afraid if they blame him, then they'll come after him violently.
Fear that they might assassinate him too. And you're right about Schumer and AOC. The scuttlebutt is that if Schumer comes out of this looking bad, that the violent rabble called Democrats in New York will want AOC to primary him as a verb and take the Democrat nomination for the gimme Democrat seat. We live in very corrupt times, don't we, Matt?
We do. And, you say looting is fundamental. I think they have a new phrase. It's, killing is fun, we're mental is kind of the new slogan.
It kind of is. I've been saying this out loud for some time now. They should stop shooting people. And it sounds like it's too much to ask. And again, I want to point this out because it's worth pointing out. A massacre at a Mormon church in Michigan where 4 were killed and 8 were wounded. The same weekend in Chicago, 4 were killed and 12 were wounded. And it wasn't called a massacre. It was called The Weekend. Not the rapper, but just an average, ordinary, normal weekend in Chicago because it's full of Democrats. Every gunman, every murderer was a Democrat. They're all registered Democrats. Matt is right. Matt should be in the Senate. Matt from St. Louis. Senator Matt from Missouri, I think would be an improvement. We did get a call from someone related to the Coast Guard saying, the Coast Guard during a government shutdown, members of the Coast Guard do not get paid because they're not a part of the Department of Defense. They're under the umbrella of the Department of Transportation, which is true. The Coast Guard is. And will they get their back money when the government reopens? And how long? Oh, yeah, speaking of which, I was looking at this because one of the questions today is mailbag day as well. It's Wednesday, and that means Hillary Clinton is waking up face down in a pool of her own dried vomit on the linoleum floor of one of their many multi-million-dollar mansions. And the Secret Service standing over her, shaking their heads with their knuckles on their hips. What might have been, what never will be, because she's Hillary Clinton and she's doomed, I say. Amazing stuff. But we do have the mailbag today, and it's hump day in the Clinton household. Hillary's got to get out of the house because it's hump day, and Bill, he's got to get busy while he can. And it's mailbag day here on the Chris Plant Show, which is different. It's a different thing altogether. But I have right here the mailbag questions, and hopefully there will be no gigantic, crazy news breaking as keeps happening on Wednesdays. Mass shootings with Democrats shooting lots of people, and assassinations because the Democrats are very violent, and they assassinated a lot of people and all of that. But the government shutdown is now in effect. Let me get to some of the government shutdown audio to share with you where we are, where we stand. And let's start with Nancy Pelosi, because she is cursing up a storm. You catch her? Where was she? Was she on MSDNC? Just regular NBC network and not MS-13 DNC. Isn't that amazing? And she decides because they're keeping it real, or they're just keeping it vulgar and crass born they're grotesque. They're grotesque pigs. And Nancy Pelosi is 85 years old. She was born in 1940 A.D. Born in 1940 A.D. Way back in the 20th century. She was born all the way back then. She was the Speaker of the House of Representatives because, she's a woman, and her father was a corrupt Baltimore Democrat politician long ago. But let me go to the audio. That's like audio. Let's go to the audio, because here is Nancy Pelosi talking to NBC News, and we beeped it for you to keep it family friendly. Unlike, Nancy Pelosi, she's not family friendly, at least not to her own family. But isn't that amazing? And, I just want to remind you of this, too. The crazy man that showed up at their multi-million-dollar mansion on a hilltop in San Francisco that hit her husband, Paul Pelosi, in the head, a terrible crime, a lunatic. He was first sentenced to like 30 years in prison or something. Then they came back on him with more charges, and he was actually sentenced to life in prison without parole, without the possibility of parole. He didn't murder the whole family. He didn't murder Paul Pelosi. He did hit him in the head with a hammer, which is completely berserk. And then second time around, the Democrats had him sentenced to life. He was an illegal alien, by the way, that hit him in the head from Canada. And we have illegal aliens from Canada, too. It's cold up there. They don't all play hockey. Sometimes they want to come here. And the illegal alien came to the United States, and he attacked Paul Pelosi, hit him in the head, and got life in prison without the possibility of parole. And I don't think Luigi Mangione is going to get life in prison without the possibility of parole, because the Democrats want to date him. And when I say date, what I mean is they want beep, 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 beep. But speaking of having to beep the bad words, let's go to Nancy Pelosi talking to NBC News. And she is naturally attacking Trump like a mentally ill 85-year-old loon. And she curses up a storm here. She uses the S word. It's a curse word that you're not allowed to use on the radio or on national television either. You can use it on cable, but not on national television. Not regulated by the FCC, cable TV, but the airwaves. And here's Nancy Pelosi talking and she has some very harsh words for the Republicans who Democrats keep shooting at and assassinating and rioting and looting and committing mob violence over, as they're doing all week in Portland, Oregon, and in Chicago, and we're in Dallas, Texas. I mentioned yesterday while we were on the air, we learned that the gunman that attacked the ICE facility by Dallas, Texas, killed one, wounded two. Well, one of the wounded died yesterday, so now he killed two and wounded one. He was trying to kill federal agents, and the news media, they were okay with that because they're Democrats. But then it turns out he only killed illegal aliens. And the Democrats are upset about that because they love crime, but they also love illegal aliens because they are so often horrible, terrible criminals, and they're in the country illegally, which is illegal. But here's Nancy Pelosi talking to NBC Fake News.
The president has said, I hear what they're saying. It's all unserious and ridiculous. In fact, I've listened to their and I tell them to go themselves. So that's I can't believe I use that word. My kids will be shocked. My grandchildren will be further shocked. I'm just quoting the President of the United States.
You're just quoting the President of the United States because he, and that is your explanation for you saying that the President, or did she say all Republicans should go beep themselves with the F word?
I've listened to their and I tell them to go themselves.
Yeah, that's what she does. And the 85-year-old former Speaker of the House keeping it dignified as usual. So if you ever see Nancy Pelosi, I don't want to recommend this, out in public, and she's, pumping gas. She's never pumped gas in her life. Back when she was a kid, she's talking about her grandkids are going to be shocked. Her great-grandkids are going to be shocked by what she said. Her great-great-great-grandchildren are going to be shocked by what she said. They're going to college now for free at Stanford or someplace. Isn't that amazing? So it's the BS. She uses the S word, BS, and she calls everything BS, and then she just tell them all to go beep themselves because she's a dignified 85-year-old. What are they worth, like $400 million? And she, when she was Speaker, would only fly on on Air Force jets back and forth to California. What, her fly commercial? Are you kidding me? Don't you know who she is? Nancy Pelosi. Continuing with her little tirade.
I think the leverage springs not from any shared values with him, if that's what he thinks health care is about. And so.
There she is, the F word and the F word again. And what they're talking about when she says health care, she means free everything for illegal alien gang members that break into the country, and talk about hitting people over the head with a hammer. Nancy Pelosi should probably get life in prison without the possibility of parole. Applaud if you think Nancy Pelosi should get life in prison without the possibility of parole. No parole for Nancy Pelosi. And we're not sure. She might have to go to a men's prison. Might have to go, because what is gender, after all? It's just a social construct, and the Democrats don't recognize social construct. Isn't that amazing? So she, again and again, is using the F word and the S word.
That's what he thinks health care is about. And so.
Yourself and yourself. All we could leave in is yourself and yourself. And that's to the President of the United States. It's the uncivil war. These people are uncivil. The incivility is dripping from their bloodthirsty gobs, their festering gobs. Aren't they amazing? And I think we played this before, but I like it. It's Senator John Kennedy, and he's always fun. Talking about the Democrats shutting down the government again last night.
Everything happens for a reason, but sometimes the reason is you're stupid and you made a bad decision. And my Democratic colleagues have made a very, very bad decision here.
That was Senator Ted Kennedy on Newsmax, on the Newsmax channel. I'm sorry, did I say John Kennedy, Senator John Kennedy, because he's living. And that's better. Yes, and he was on with Rob Schmidt on the Newsmax channel. And you heard Rob Schmidt doing a little chuckle there because John Kennedy is funny. And that's just great. And then he said, Rob Schmidt is like, well, Senator, why did the Democrats decide to shut the government down? They've got a list of demands. They've got a stolen illegal handgun pressed against America's head, and they pulled the hammer back, and they're screaming curse words at you and saying we have a list of demands here, like they're hostage takers. Democrat Party is closer on the political spectrum to Hamas than they are to Robert F. Kennedy, who was murdered by a Palestinian gentleman named Sirhan Sirhan, not a gentleman at all, who remains alive and well in a prison in California, enjoying 3 culturally sensitive meals a day. Here is Senator John Kennedy.
I knew they were going to do this 2 weeks ago when they listed their demands. They're demanding that we give free health care to foreign nationals who are in our country illegally. They're demanding that taxpayers pay for sex change operations. If you list all of their demands and add them up, it's between $1.2 and $1.5 trillion. Now, they know it's an unserious proposal. They know we're not going to accept it. That tells me that this decision to shut down government is not based on policy, Rob. It's based on politics.
And that's very generous. I think he should have been slightly less generous. I'm sorry, they're shaking down. It's a shakedown. They're like Al Sharpton on LSD. They want let's just go with the low end here. $1.2 trillion. That .2 is $200 billion. And the Democrat Party has become so accustomed to stealing from all of us with a gun to our head, like the criminals that they are, that they very casually and blithely walk into this one and saying, you know what the Republicans are asking for? They're asking for the same budget that Joe Biden, it was Joe Biden's budget, and they said, let's just move it forward, and they do these continuing resolutions that they call CRs, and honestly, Senator John Kennedy, $1.2 trillion to $1.5 trillion that they want to steal, and they just put it on the tab, but we've already got a tab of $37 trillion. Amazing stuff. Again, if we started paying it off today, the $37 trillion debt that our members of Congress have accrued over the years and presidents have accrued over the years, if we started paying it off today at $1 a second, it would take more than 1 million years to pay off the national debt that we have. Senator John Kennedy is not amused by any of it.
The loon wing, the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, does not like Senator Schumer. And he wants them to like him. He wants them to love him. They have asked that government be shut down, and Senator Schumer has agreed. But once you shut down government, you've got to figure out how to get it back open. A wise person once said, if you pray for rain, you got to be prepared to deal with the mud. And I don't know how they're going to deal with the mud, because we will never, ever agree to this list of demands.
Well, that's true. That's because they know they have a filthy, corrupt news media that will lie for them and carry water for them. And honestly, womp, womp, womp. It's not the proper function of our government, but it's the normal function of our government. That doesn't mean that it's proper. I've got to see this nice lady, very lovely news reporter, Allison Steinberg. She's with Lindell TV, you know, the pillow guy. And I've got her coming up. She found Maxine Waters. On the steps of the Capitol and asked her a question or two. And Maxine Waters, a perfectly typical Democrat member of the House of Representatives, mentally incompetent and all that. But let's go to back to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Richard calling from Manassas, Virginia. Ricardo, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Christopher Plant, thank you so much for taking my call. Real quick, just a point of clarification. The Coast Guard is now in the Department of Homeland Security. As somebody who's with the Coast Guard, just wanted to make sure that was clear. That transition happened in 2002 after 9/11. But anyway, on to my call.
So sorry about that. Thank you for that.
Not a problem.
That's because the Department of Homeland Security gobbled up everything.
Yes, they sure did.
Yeah.
Hey, so, I think back to when Harry Reid killed the filibuster on Supreme Court nominees and all that.
Yeah,
Apparently,
federal judges, right?
Filibuster is a tailorable thing to suit the Senate's needs, depending on who's in power. And Mitch McConnell said, "Oh, you're going to live to regret that," and they sure did. We got 3 Supreme Court justices and Amy Coney Barrett in record time.
Yep.
Why doesn't Senator Thune just kill the filibuster for the CR? It's a clean CR from the House. There's no need to debate it because it's, like you said, Joe Biden's budget. And just kill the filibuster. If it comes over clean from the House, there's no reason to filibuster. Just vote it up or down. 51 senators passes it. And just make that a rule. You don't even need 60 senators to change the rule. The Republicans can change it because they're the majority. What do you think about that?
I think that sounds brilliant. I need to look at the Senate rules. I'm not an expert on the Senate rules. Almost nobody is because they're very complex and arcane rules. But if
I think they're written in cuneiform.
If that's exactly right, and if that is possible, I've got to say, Richard, I think that Thune should go ahead and make the move and let CNN try to explain it to their dozens of viewers who won't understand it and don't want to anyway. A very, very interesting idea. And you're right about Mitch McConnell. He knows and knew the rules of the Senate as well as anyone. And Harry Reid was an abusive SOB. Just ask his brother, who beat the hell out of him. And remember that? And he had a broken this and a black eye and all that. Yeah, they're a violent party. But, Richard, I like your idea. Thune just kill the CR, pass the budget, keep the government open, and explain that the Democrat Party, they're sabotaging everything for everyone. That's who they are. Richard, thank you. Good one.
I've listened to their and I tell them to go themselves.
All right, I've got, Don Lemon, I got to tell you, I want to, but Don Lemon goes with Hillary Clinton attacking white men. You can see why she might not like white men, because she's married to Bill Clinton, and he's definitely a white man, but not the best representative of the white man caucus. But Don Lemon, and I've got the audio for you that I want to share with you. Don Lemon claims that white men are broken. White men are broken. And he says that white men are to blame for mass violence in the U.S., and Democrats are defending this because they're mentally ill. And I did something crazy. I went to Al Gore's Amazing Internet. Have you heard about this? Al Gore, peace be upon him. And I went to Al Gore's Amazing Internet, and I looked up the crime, like murder, for example, of white people versus black people, since Don Lemon, an allegedly black person, who has a husband who's a white person and allegedly a man. He just amazing. He's like, oh, white men, are you okay? You're sending troops, National Guard, to cities. Well, you guys should stop killing people in those cities. How about that? See, the National Guard, they're trying to stop you guys from killing all those people. That's the point of that. But then the white man becomes evil. Wait till you hear Don Lemon.